Now, the late Queen's lady-in-waiting, Lady Susan Hussey, has resigned tonight from her honorary position at Buckingham Palace after being accused of making offensive and racist comments, offering her profound apologies. Ngozi Fulani, a campaigner for domestic violence, took to Twitter today to describe the interaction she'd had with Lady Susan at a reception hosted by the Queen Consort Camilla yesterday. She described being asked, "What part of Africa are you from? And what nationality are you?" Despite insisting she was born here and is British, Lady Susan continued to press her, asking, "Where do you really come from? And where do your people come from?" Well, Miss Fulani described the exchange as traumatising and that she did not expect a conversation like that to take place at Buckingham Palace. And Prince William, who's Lady Susan's godson, said in a statement, "Racism has no place in our society," and the comments were unacceptable. Racism is, of course, a sensitive subject for the royal family ever since the Duchess of Sussex made startling allegations in that explosive interview with Oprah Winfrey last year.
When I was pregnant, all around this same time, so we have in tandem the conversation of he won't be given security, he's not going to be given a title, and also concerns and conversations about how dark his skin might be when he's born.
Well, the revelation from today couldn't have come at a more awkward time, as William and Kate have just arrived in Boston tonight for a charm offensive ahead of Friday's celebrity-endorsed Earthshot prize. I think the important thing before we get into exactly what Susan Hussey said and how it was intended and how it was received and how it made Ngozi feel is just to emphasise how big of a disaster this is for William and Kate at the moment, arriving in Boston. And what we all need to remember is that Americans, many Americans, really do believe that the royal family is racist. And they're only just beginning to get over the revelations that we were just showing there from the Oprah Winfrey interview. So you've got that on one side. And the other thing to remember is that Susan Hussey is not just any extended member of the royal household. She is incredibly important. She was the only person in the Bentley with the Queen at Philip's funeral. She has been a lady-in-waiting for 60 years. She was given this honorary job after the Queen died because she was so important. We just said she's William's godmother. She's known as the sort of head girl-in-chief of the royal household. She used to be sent out on official engagements on occasions where the Queen couldn't make it. She would be the Queen on those occasions, representing the Queen. So this isn't just anybody. And somebody of her age should know, of experience, should know better.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, all I derive from this is that Meghan and Harry were telling the truth all along, and the royal family have got egg on their face, because actually, even if they say this is an 81-year-old woman and her age means she doesn't know any better, then you don't put a woman of that age who isn't aware of these sensitivities in a front-facing role, in a public-facing role within the royal family. William's come out today and condemned it, saying there's no room for these comments in the royal family. He condemns racism. Interesting that he didn't condemn the racism that when Meghan said her first-person account of what had been said to her. So he believed this woman, but not Meghan. And in fact, Ngozi herself said she didn't want to name. OK, she identified and gave a hint as to who it was, and people have jumped on that. But she didn't feel like this woman needed to be outed and turned into this focal point of hatred, because actually it's far bigger than that. It's not just about individual change. You can get rid of an 81-year-old woman. The system's not going to change. You need to address racism within the structure of the royal family.
So I don't think that the royal family is institutionally racist. I suppose I feel profoundly sad that this has happened. I think it is a tragedy on so many levels. It is awful for the victim, who clearly felt very affronted. She says she felt traumatised. There's no reason for us to question that. I'll take her account at face value. It is also an absolute tragedy for the woman herself, who I believe really spoke out of ignorance. I don't believe she had any malign intent. I think this doesn't make it more excusable, but I do think it's a generational thing. And I think that type of casual, everyday racism will probably, I hope it will, die out with that generation. It's not to make excuses for it, but it's more to understand where she was coming from. It was clumsy, it was ignorant. I don't believe she meant anything malign.
I think you're right. I think that word is exactly right about clumsy, and also, Daisy, you used the word experience, and I think that's absolutely right, saying for a woman of this experience, it's unforgivable. And that is absolutely true. However you look at it, it's a total car crash in terms of trying to defend it. But Isabel's point is really valid as well, because it's about intent. I don't think she meant offence by what she said. So really what she was saying, what is your family background, would have been a better way to phrase it. She didn't say that. But also, and I've seen this so many times with elderly people, older people, where they say things, they have a stream of consciousness, they say things that they don't necessarily understand what the meaning of that is. And you have to constantly correct them and say that isn't an appropriate way to speak.
But JJ, the assumption that she seems to be making is you don't belong here.
Yeah, exactly. It starts with her touching her hair. You don't touch a black person's hair. People know this. And
you don't touch anyone's hair.
You don't touch anyone's hair, no, but this woman thinks it's OK to. And we could say about the age thing, if Martin Luther King was alive today, he'd be 10 years older than this woman, Lady Hussey. Let me not call her Lady Hussey. Hussey. Susan Hussey would be younger than Martin Luther King. Just because she's old doesn't mean that she's OK to be racist. There's people who are older than her, people who are long gone, who were alive before her, who fought against...
Let me finish.
Let me finish. The people who fought against racism, who are older than her. There's people who are younger than me who are openly still racist. The age has nothing to do with it. Whether her intent was to be racist or not, it doesn't matter. The fact is that she was racist. And if this is what a woman who, as you say, Daisy, was so important in the royal family, I do not believe for a second this is one isolated incident. This is how she has been around these other royals. And now we can see that this is how the royal family allows someone around them to be like. With Prince Andrew, we condemn him because he was friends with, and rightfully so, Epstein. The people you surround yourself with are a true telling of the person that you are. This woman was a big, important role in the royal family. I think that's everything that needs to be said about it.
And I think it's important to say that in tomorrow's papers, there will be lots of bits of this that will be poured over. One of the elements will be a quote from Tom Bower's book, who, as you know, wrote a book recently, in which he said that Lady Susan Hussey had said that the marriage of Harry and Meghan would end in tears. That she was also asked by the Queen...
But that's not racist. That's not racist at all.
It is. Okay. What I'm saying is that it shows that she didn't believe in the marriage, and a lot of people.
But that means that she may have had insight.
But I'm saying it will come out that she said that, and people will take from that some sort of implication that she was disapproving of the marriage.
That would be awful.
I'm just saying
to say that just because she
will be made.
But they shouldn't.
But they're incorrect assumptions.
And they should be challenged.
No,
just because she's commenting.
No.
Let me finish. Just because she's commenting and observing and predicting that marriage may not work out too well has nothing whatsoever to do with race. It might be about...
You don't know whether it does or whether it doesn't. That's the point.
I don't,
the point
but
is,
I would.
I'm not saying that... I haven't said that she's racist.
Daisy. Daisy was saying that this woman has said, that people will presume that she already had it or didn't like or didn't approve of the marriage, which is what she had. But after that, that's one presumption. After that, there will be a presumption that she just didn't like Meghan based on perhaps along racial lines.
But that's an assumption.
Okay, but you were talking about intent, and I'm with you. A lot of the time it's like, you try and think, well, what was the intention behind that? Fine, and if you want to not excuse the behaviour... No, you haven't excused it, but I'm saying if you want to kind of say that, well, she didn't intend it, that's one thing. However, this is not going to be the first comment that anybody in those circles has made. So the intent is not on the individual. The intent is on the structure and the firm around them to go, what is our intent in not
I think you need to speak to more 83-year-old ladies, because many...
I speak to 83-year-old ladies
but
all the
many
time.
of them... I don't
and
think...
I wouldn't put them in the front line of the royal
family.
family.
But I don't
men,
think...
by the way.
And men, sorry, and men as well. And I just think... And I go back to this thing about a stream of consciousness. They say what's on their mind. They don't necessarily...
So don't give them a job.
No, so they don't necessarily... Sure. That's fine. But they don't necessarily think through the implications of what they say. Now, it's really important that you correct them and then sort of challenge them and say that isn't actually right and you need to reassess what you're saying. But at the same time, also, society has moved on enormously. And it's not just about race, actually. They make all sorts of implications about saying, why aren't you married, for example?
But you're making an excuse, because that wasn't...
I'm not making an excuse. I'm just saying it's a generational
But this wasn't
difference.
said. But they didn't say to Ngozi, why aren't you married? They were talking to her specifically about her race and her heritage. You can say...
But if she said...
David, you can say we should pick people up on it because they're older generation.
Hang on a minute.
No, let me finish. The Duke was famous for making racist gaffes all the time. How many times do you have to pick him up on it for him to make it again and again? Whether it's about Indigenous Australians, whether it's about Indians, whether it's about Black British people, he made those comments many occasions, and he was fine, wasn't it?
If she had phrased it a little more subtly, if she'd said, hang on a minute, but if she'd said, what is your family background, I think that would have been an acceptable question.
Or what is your heritage?
What is your heritage?
And I think Nicola's point is a really good one, which is about having the right kinds of people around at those events. And, you know, look, probably many of us have very elderly relatives who we're a bit nervous around, for example, in NHS settings where there's a lot of diversity. I've had relatives who I was nervous they might say something inappropriate. They wouldn't have meant it offensively, but it would have been taken as an offence. So keep those people away from those situations.
And just picking up on JJ's point, yes, Prince Philip did make a lot of bad comments, but he didn't in the end of his life because he had learned his lesson, he had been taught, he had educated himself. And what's shocking about this is that this woman said these comments yesterday, and she has been in the public eye. She has been all around the world, to all Commonwealth countries with the Queen. She's been on practically every state visit, and I think that's what's so shocking about this story.
It is surprising that you could have spent that long and still not have understood that.
But I just have two more things to say. One, I hope that next year it's William who's getting an award for outing the royal family for racism. Will it be, since Harry's getting one this year? Yeah. And secondly, we can all say we've got old people who are racist and it's their generation. I also know lots of old people who are not racist and don't make these kind of comments. So I don't think we should be just blanketing saying, oh, but they're old, it's a different generation, because I know loads of old people who aren't like this.
But a lot of it is education. I mean, I remember it was only probably 10 years ago that a really close friend of mine told me about why it's so important not to touch a black person's hair.
Yeah.
And it was a real lesson to me. And I was incredibly grateful to her that she explained it's not like somebody touching my hair. It's completely different. And people do, I don't need to tell you, JD, touch black women's, particularly if they have amazing dreads or an afro, whatever it might be. People think it's okay to touch it, like you might touch a pregnant belly, and it's not okay in that way. But maybe nobody's ever said that to Susan Hussey, but they should have if she's going to be in that kind of situation.
Yeah.